Hey guys, what's up and welcome back to Toe Tags Metal Reviews, and today we're going to be celebrating 25 years of LD50 by Mudvayne. So, a new metal classic, LD50. This is our first time ever covering Mudvayne on the channel.
We haven't had many chances to.
They've kind of been dormant for a while, recently got back together, but no
They're just doing live shows.
Just live shows. But, man, I'm just going to open the gate with the song, Dig. I think in terms of Mudvayne's popularity, this is one of the, if not the pinnacle of in terms of like what everybody knows.
Yeah.
Like it's either this, Not Falling, or like Happy.
For Mudvayne, I mean, Dig is not only just Mudvayne, this is iconic new metal, like 2000s new metal.
That's true,
like,
it is.
This is one of those songs that just is on that list.
Iconic song.
Yeah.
Love it. I'm sure you love it too. And that's also sick is that it kind of resurfaced with that meme as well, which was so cool to see everyone. I love that one. That one's so good. But yeah, it's such a complete package of a song. It's such an incredible song to have after an intro track, because it starts with an intro track, Monolith, then it goes into Dig, and it's just like, it's such an explosive, we're here, this is what it's about, oh my god. It's like how Slipknot had that. They had, the first track and then Sick, and it's...
Yep, same exact vibe, I agree.
Same vibe. Monolith is a little bit long, but I think it sets up the album great.
Yeah.
And I kind of found myself like, sometimes I would kind of skip Monolith just because Dig is so good, I want to get to it quicker.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, I want to get there,
Yeah, I think Monolith was a fine intro track. Like you said, it sets up the album. Yeah, it's a little bit long. It's just under 2 minutes, like 1:42.
Yeah.
But it's fine as an intro interlude, whatever. And the fact that you can just skip by it if you really don't want to listen to it, it's there. The skip button's there. Exactly.
One thing that's kind of cool about it, and that you kind of see throughout the album, is that the sound effects that are happening in Monolith bleed into the intro of Dig. Mm-hmm. There's a few interludes on this album. They do that a few times. There's some of them that transition really, really nice, really, really, really clean, really, really interesting.
They just sound like they're parts of the next song.
Yeah.
Or the previous song.
Yeah. There's one of them in the middle. Oh, where's the note on it? I think it was...
ratio?
It wasn't... Well, that one's a good one, and that one is on the shorter side. It was, I think it's Mutandis, I think it was called.
Yep.
That one, it flows out of, I believe it comes out of Nothing to Gain and then goes into, which track was it? There's a lot in this record. It's a long one with a lot of stuff going on. But it, what's the track?
It's probably that one. I forgot to even put that in my notes because I got track 8 then track 10.
Yeah, I think is it Nothing and Everything? Oops. It blends right in, flows right between it. It basically has a backwards, like reversed version of the drum groove, and then the proper one. Yeah, it's between Nothing to Gain and Everything and Nothing.
Yeah.
Mutandis. Such a cool interlude. It's a bit long, but at the same time, it just flows through them so well. Like, oh, that's so cool, creative, and smooth. Mm-hmm. Love that type of transition. But I definitely think what's really interesting about this album is that not only is it just raw, crazy new metal that came out in the year 2000, like it's there, part of that big explosion, but what this band was doing that nobody else was really doing in new metal is the high amounts of technicality in this record.
It's very technical.
Like, there's a lot of really interesting stuff that they do, a lot of complex stuff that they do that no one else was doing.
Yeah.
But then on top of that, there's still raw, aggressive craziness. Like, they take elements of all the other bands that were blowing up at the time and then add a new spin of like, yeah, we're doing a bunch of complex stuff on top of that. And everyone is just tight. Like, everyone who performed on this album just sounds great and contributes really cool and interesting things in these songs.
Yeah, it's one of those bands where you can listen, you can focus on any element of the music and you're going to enjoy what you're hearing because they're all putting forth great effort and unique effort. And like, this is the bass on this album, the bass in this band, it's out of this world. Like the way you hear these bass notes just plucking through certain parts of the songs, like, and the timing that they're happening at.
Yeah.
Such creative, like masterpiece bass lines this guy's writing and performing. And Dig's probably the perfect example of it, because that song's like, I think the reason why it blew up as much as it is because of the bass.
Yeah.
For me, that's what did it. It just sounds so good. It's just punchy sounding.
It was really nice to see Ryan get like some love from that meme.
Yeah.
Because not only is it obviously the bass part, but also the crazy faces he's making in the video.
Exactly.
And stuff like that.
And it looks cool and all that stuff, yeah. The whole band looks cool, but...
Yeah, he had such a phenomenal performance. And not only is it through his performance, but also the bass tone on this record. Very so clear, good. Comes through really nicely. Yeah. It's not the kind of thing where it gets drowned out. Like, it's definitely a huge element of the album that you could pick out at any moment, and he's probably doing something cool and interesting.
That's exactly right. And it's such a highlight as well. But again, even everything else, even the singing. Yeah. I mean, Chad sounds phenomenal, and he's so good at ad-libbing things. Like, he does all these little things like, in Internal Primates Forever, he does this little noise before he starts screaming jump. He just goes like or something like that, or like some weird little whine. But I love it. It's awesome. And then you have in Severed, I like when he says "Come on, da da." Then I can't remember. I don't know all the lyrics, but when he says "Release" and he rolls his arm.
Oh my god, I love that.
That's the kind of shit I'm talking about. But yeah, he's so good at those little ad-lib parts, and they just add so much wealth of character to each song when you listen to the lyrics and the vocals. Really good stuff. But the drums.
Oh my god.
The drums are
killer.
A different breed altogether, because just the insane amount of like time signature changes and the rhythms he's playing, where he throws the double bass in, where he's doing just all kinds of he's underrated. Matt McDonnell is underrated, and it's just not fair. I like, a lot of people love Danny Carey for good reason, right? I feel like this style of drumming is similar to that. I hear a lot 100%. Of that style in here. That's one thing too, like you mentioned back in that time, like nobody was really doing this kind of stuff. Tool was doing it.
Well, that's the thing. Nobody was doing this in nu metal.
That's right, in nu metal.
In the late 90s, by that point, we were getting a lot of technical Tool stuff. We were getting a lot of like Dream Theater as well. The Dance of Eternity existed at the time this record came out.
Yeah.
But those bands are prog metal bands.
Yeah.
This is a nu metal band doing stuff that those prog bands would do. And that's impressive.
So I just think it's a little bit of a shame that, it's not a shame that Tool gets credit for that stuff. It's a shame that Mudvayne didn't. Because I don't hear people talking about Mudvayne in that aspect. They're not in that conversation. Mm-hmm. And I feel like this album's a good reason and a good excuse to put them in conversations like that. Yeah. Because of how crazy stuff like that is. And I think for me, and you can elaborate on this, but Nothing to Gain is such an interesting song rhythmically, specifically the ending. I had such a hard time counting it. TV Fish will go into detail about this. They do a syncopated polyrhythm with like alternating time signatures where the drums are doing one thing, the vocals are doing another thing, and the guitars are doing another thing. They're making it fucking work, and it's just complete chaos that's working. And I tried counting it so much, I couldn't figure it out. I kind of was on, like, I could figure out that it's alternating time signatures, but I just couldn't grasp what was going on because of how fucking crazy it was. Aside from that, the song's got funk. It's got disco-y type of stuff in it. It's got hip-hop in it.
Yeah.
It's got a whole smorgasbord of ingredients all intertwined in this. I just love also how bipolar and dehumanizing the lyrics are, because that was a real big theme of nu metal back then too. Like, I'm so sick, I'm so disturbed. Like that was the big thing, right? And this song really just nails that.
Which makes sense considering it's pretty clearly about Ed Gein.
Yeah, I don't know if it's about Ed Gein or just inspired by him or what. I didn't actually look at the lyrics, but it's just an overall just really, really good song. I was actually happy to see that it's one of the more played tracks on the album as well.
It was a single.
It was a single. I didn't know that. So, but yeah, I think that, that's good. That's good. But yeah, what were they actually doing at the end of the song? Because it was nuts.
Like, so you mentioned it to me. You're like, oh man, I'm struggling to count this. So I kind of just made it a challenge. Like, okay, let's see if I can figure this out. Labbed it out. Let's see if I can solve it. And I did. So what's happening at the end of this song, the vocals and the guitars are doing the same thing. But what's happening is that the drums are playing a figure of a bar of 4/4 plus a bar of 9/8. Mm-hmm. And that is the figure that he's playing till the end of the song.
Yeah.
But for that section, the guitar is just playing the same riff, which is at the start of the song. It's the song's riff, which is in 4/4. against the drums doing this other thing. So they kind of go out of sync and it sounds totally whack. But then after so many bars, the guitar plays a bar of 7/8 of this riff to meet up back with the drums on one.
Yeah.
And then they play that
How do you plan that? Like,
God.
you gotta be a wizard to write that shit.
When I was doing some reading about like the song and the meaning and stuff, it actually goes further than that.
Yeah.
So what I was reading about this band in general is that they liked to use time signatures as a symbolic thing within the meanings of the songs. So this song, it's about Ed Gein. He did a bunch of grave robbing, something you'd naturally think is a nighttime activity.
Yeah.
The number 9 is a lunar number.
Okay.
So this song does have 9, like the time signature of 9, 9, 8, 9, 4, whatever.
Yeah.
That is a lot in the song. So the fact that you're focusing on a time signature of 9 in a song, because that's a lunar number about this guy who did grave robbing, which is something at night, what the fuck? Like, it goes that deep. And you would have never expected a new metal band to go that deep with their stuff. And that is just truly impressive.
It is. And, you know, that's not the only song where that stuff appears either.
Yeah, it's not even just that. It's all over the album.
Probably the most prominent one, I would say. But, yeah, you have songs like Prod, which is one of 3 songs that has, I mean, what I can consider reggae in it. Like, at least a touch of reggae sprinkled in there, which is also very interesting. But this song also has, you know, alternating bars of whatever they're doing, 4/4, 8/4, 10/4, back and forth, this kind of stuff. Like,
The chorus is pretty cool in that song.
What was it? What were they doing in the chorus?
So it's in 9/4, but they basically, the whole band hits a rest for just 3 counts. So da-da-da-da, they do that, and then a count of 3, and then they come back with the next bar, and it's like, oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, so that's a song that gives me Tool vibes, because Tool does that a lot too.
Yeah.
They do a lot of rests and things like that. So I actually wrote that as a note here. Another thing that's kind of a staple from this band, at least, you know what? I don't know if it was a staple going forward, because I kind of fell off after the first 2 albums from Mudvayne, to be honest. But the double singing, where they have one guy singing, one guy kind of screaming, because Greg does background vocals, and they have Chad or whatever screaming, and the other guys, and it's like 2 vocals going on at the same time, like 2 lyrics, right? They do that a lot. They do it in Cradle, they do it in Everything and Nothing, they do it in Severed, they do it in Under My Skin. Those are just ones I have notes on. They probably do it in other songs too, but it's something that was a reoccurring theme, and it really gives the album a personality, right? And it makes it sound, you know, cohesive and like a package, right? Which is cool. I like stuff like that, when you have things that kind of just, they're not the same each time, but it's the same idea done differently, you know, each time, which is really cool.
Yeah. Cradle in particular is a sick song. The drum groove at 124 is so nasty, and I love that the drum groove kind of changes a little bit when they come back to that riff a few times. So it's a good example of how just a simple drum groove can completely change the feel of a riff or a song.
So, you know, we've been praising this a lot so far in this video, but I want to kind of step back a little bit and talk about some stuff that maybe wasn't that great. And I think the glaring obvious one is the interludes, because there's like 4 of them, 4 or 5 of them. It definitely lengthens the album. This album is 68 minutes long. It's pretty long. And the interludes themselves are also pretty long. So the last one, for example, Lethal Dosage, the last track, is 3 minutes long. Yeah, you could just stop listening to it, but it's part of the album. It just felt like it didn't need to be that long. It could be there. Just 3 minutes is way too much overkill for something like that. Having them at 1:42 is also long. The other ones, you got Golden Ratio at under a minute. That to me is like good. Keep it under a minute and you're golden. Golden Ratio. So I think that's the biggest problem with the album. The other problem that I had was there's a lot of songs on here even without the interludes. It felt like there was just a lot of stuff, and when you have a lot of songs like that on an album, it's harder for it to be consistently good that long, right? And there's a lot of really good songs on here, but it's like, it felt like they could have cut out a little bit of bloat on this, and they could have had something super, super, super solid. Yeah. I really like this album, but it feels like there's stuff in here that doesn't need to be in here. And, you know, I don't even know, like Under My Skin, for example, Pharmacopoeia, those 2 songs are kind of tracks 14 and 15. I feel like they probably could have been left out.
Under My Skin's one of my favorites from this record. That song's fucking sick, dude.
So that song's interesting. So that's one of the songs that kind of like solidifies this band in the new metal thing because it's got the hip hop vibe to it. That's basically what new metal is. It's metal with hip hop elements in it. Essentially, that's where the fusion is.
A very basic version.
It's a very basic explanation, right? So that's a good example of why Mudvayne falls in the new metal category, is that song. I didn't really vibe with it. It's fine. I think the song's fine. I think all the songs are decent, but there's some that are just so much stronger than others, and it makes me feel like they could have chopped off a bit of time by leaving out these ones that I was kind of meh on.
Mm-hmm. I do kind of feel like they could have shaved off a little bit here. I think at the very least with Lethal Dosage, it is the end of the album, so you could at least kind of give it a bit of a pass for like, okay, it might be a bit long for what it is, especially, but you know what? It kind of creates the bookend that Monolith had, so it's like you can kind of give it a pass there, but like a song like Recombinant Resurgence, that one I probably would have cut, because I don't mind that they kind of had a few interludes, because at the very least, you're able to kind of separate the album into sections rather than just first half, second half. It's kind of like beginning, middle, and end, which I kind of like. But I do think that, you know, Recombinant Resurgence is kind of close to Mutatis Mutandis, so
you don't have to have both.
You don't really need both.
Yeah.
And, you know, I did kind of look at the numbers. All of the interludes, intro, outro combined together are a total of 9 minutes, 30 seconds.
It's not too bad.
And if you
it feels bad.
If you subtract that from the 68-minute runtime, it's still 58:30, and that's still like quite long. It doesn't add as much as it seems. You know?
It doesn't, but when you're listening to the album, it feels like it. Listening on a first listen, I think it's great. I think they all serve a purpose.
Yeah.
Because they have an unsettling kind of feeling to them. They kind of, you know, they serve their purpose well. But listening to the album, you know, repeat listens or whatever like that, it feels like they could have trimmed them.
Yeah, and some of them are kind of better than others in that regard.
Exactly.
You know, some of them lose their luster, some of them don't.
Exactly.
But, you know, Under My Skin, I love that song. The bounciness of that song, the aggression, I think it's great to have that near the end of the album as well. I can agree with Pharmacopoeia. That is an example of a song where I'm like, I don't really have much to say. Yeah. I know a lot of people really like No Forever, which is kind of the last track.
I like No Forever too. I thought that was a great track.
I thought it was kind of just like fine to me, because I kind of felt that at that point in the album, that song doesn't really add much that the other songs haven't. It kind of just feels like a recap.
It feels like it's just more Mudvayne stuff, but I like, Chad really has some nice notes on that song. He's got it, you know, there's not a lot of songs where he's singing, and that's one of them where he does. I also love the riffs and how twangy they are, because the whole time the bass is twanging along, and this one the guitars twang. And I love also Matt's drums. He just, like I said at the beginning, he knows when to turn the double kick on.
Yeah.
The perfect time, just awesome stuff. Then he shuts it off. And, you know, that song has those kind of elements, which is what drew me to it. But I thought that was a great closing track. I should say closing song, because there's another track after that. But
yeah,
that was, you know, good.
Yeah, it is. It's interesting because it's a new metal album, and a lot of bands at the time were kind of just like explosion, that's it. But to have an album that's about an hour long, which is kind of more of the average around that time overall for albums, but for the genre, for the album to be that long and have that kind of depth is definitely unique. I've seen some people argue that this isn't even a new metal band at all. I would be inclined to disagree, because you look at songs like Dig, songs like Under My Skin, like they fit in there. They just have all these other elements. And a lot of people will look at a band that has this kind of sound and say, well, it's just Deftones. And it's like, Deftones only had 2 albums when this came out.
Yeah.
Like, these guys were there.
I feel like they have, like, there's certain elements that I hear here. Like, I feel like they have the bass presence of Korn. I feel like they have the quirkiness of System of a Down. I feel like they have
the hip-hop of Limp Bizkit.
And then they have, like, the lyrical kind of poetry of Slipknot. But they have the erratic nature of Deftones, all with the technicality of Tool.
Like it's everything together.
Yeah, so, like, they have, like, you can't say they're not new metal when they have all these elements that other new metal bands have. Like, they're definitely new metal. I don't agree with that argument.
Yeah, exactly. Neither do I. Like, I'd say the lyricism, like, I'd say, I don't know if it's as good or as poetic, like, could even be compared to the likes of Mushroomhead in that regard.
It's also super angsty, too, which was another big thing for new metal. Very angsty music, like, you ain't fucking changing me! Like, that's angsty as fuck. And that's, you know, everybody's screaming that along.
Oh, right? 100%.
So, what do you want to do?
Well, I guess let's rate the album. One small cool thing I'll say here with my rating that's interesting, just fun fact about this album, it is tied with 2 other albums as the most amount of tracks for an album we've reviewed on the channel.
17 tracks.
So, and that is tied with Damnation and a Day by Cradle of Filth.
Yep.
And the Lunar Injection Kool-Aid Eclipse Conspiracy by Rob Zombie.
Right.
Both those also 17. So
It's impressive that you remember the name of that album.
yeah.
It's crazy.
Anyway, I honestly think for nu metal, like, this album is iconic. I think there's so much interesting stuff in there. Could it be shaved down a little bit? Yes, I think it does. There's a little bit you could kind of shave off, but I think there's a lot of consistent, high quality stuff in there. I think it stands out among all the other bands and albums that were coming out at the time. Very impressive that something like this came out in 2000. You know, something like this comes out today, yeah, I could see that, and it would be sick. But the fact that this was happening during the nu metal explosion, very, very impressive. It's gonna get my toe tag.
Cool. Toe tag from TV Fish. Nice. So yeah, this album, it's a fun album. There's lots of strong stuff on this album. You know, you mentioned that, you know, it's kind of iconic in a way. I feel like it needs to be in more conversations when people are talking about the top albums from that era and stuff like that. I don't feel like it's mentioned enough. Maybe just not in my circles, I don't know. But I feel like it's a little bit underrated, underappreciated. I feel like they've done some stuff here that was kind of just, for the time, bonkers. And they nailed it. Now, with that said, I do think there's some bloat on this album. I do think there's some stuff on here that kind of weighs it down a bit, and in a way that's not favorable to me. However, there's a lot of really good fucking stuff on this album. And as we mentioned at the very beginning of this video, every member on this album fucking shines. And no matter what I felt like focusing on, whether it was the whole band, the drums, whatever, I was just loving it. There's so many good songs on this album. The writing's fantastic. It sounds really good. It's mastered really well. It's gonna get my toe tag as well. LD50's going on the list.
Going on the 2 toe tag list. Congrats to Mudvayne for making it. It feels good to celebrate this album 25 years.
25 years, yeah.
You know, I hope that we can kind of bring more conversation to this album, because we both believe that it's a bit more on the underrated side.
Yeah.
And we'd love to hear what you guys have to say about this record 25 years later. Is this your first time hearing about Mudvayne? Is it an album that you listened to back in the day? You need to hear it again?
It'd be nice to hear some new Mudvayne.
That would be awesome. They're back together. I'd love to hear new Mudvayne, see what that's about.
Maybe they're cooking. Maybe they're cooking.
We can only hope. Anyway, guys, that's all we got for you today. Remember to like this video if you liked it. Tell us in the comments below, what do you think of this album, this band? What is your favorite? We'd love to hear what you guys have to say. And subscribe if you guys are new to the channel. I'm TV Fish.
I'm By Yourself.
We'll see you guys later.